Biden's soul of America, someone wise beyond their years, we call an old soul. The auto manufacturer Kia even makes a soul. A soul. I mean, really, what is a soul anyways? Now, if you don't like that word soul, I understand. I've been avoiding it myself for years. But lately at check-ins before meetings, I've been asking, how is it with your soul? What I'm asking, I think, is to cut the crap. Don't talk about the weather. Tell me how your lived struggles and joys are. I guess I could ask, how is it with your psyche? How is it with your spirit? How is it with yourself? How is it with your mind? But soul is the word we use for that spiritual center of a human being. Soul is some intangible spark. We all have some fire burning in us at the furnace of meaning, the calm in a cluttered chaos. A soul is intuitive. Its path is pilgrimage, where the mystical encounters us. Now, we may think of spirit, soul, and our ideas as immaterial, but our thoughts, little as a leaf or as big as the sky, release neurotransmitters in our brains, and our feelings have corresponding chemicals. Love is oxytocin, joy is serotonin. Our bodies produce our souls. Everything that is has to be made up of something. The story of our souls emerges in our very own bodies. So how do you quantify a soul? Well, Dr. Duncan MacDougall, over 100 years ago, attempted to weigh a soul. He laid critically ill people on a scale and recorded their weights before and after death. 21 grams is the precise weight, he concluded. He repeated this experiment on dogs and he couldn't find a change in their weight. After all, dogs don't have souls, right? The history of the soul is as complex as the soul itself. From the Lutherans and I guess Saturday morning cartoons, I learned that a soul was a changeless entity eternally created by the Creator. I later learned that this was not necessarily a Jewish nor a Christian idea, but more of a Greek conception. For early Jews, the soma, the body, and the psyche, the soul, were intimately connected with each other. Flesh and soul were animated by ruach, breath, spirit, wind. Ancient Jews were not so obsessed with what an individual human being is like we are today. Their identity was with the group. Artists, philosophers, and theologians now are constantly asking the question, what is the human person? Psychology, initially an offshoot of philosophy, is really the study of the soul, the psyche. 400 years ago, the influential French thinker René Descartes said, because we think we are human. Descartes thought golden retrievers and other animals were thoughtless brutes, beast machines pulled and pushed simply by stimuli. Humans, on the other hand, were the only ones to have inner experiences of the soul with an awareness of one's own thoughts. See why you can't measure the weight of a dog's soul? But certainly, all animals, from dolphins to dingoes, are doing some sort of thinking, some cognition. Are they self-conscious like humans? Can they think about themselves thinking? We don't know for sure. The latest neuroscience and cognitive science conclude that human consciousness, the human soul, can be isolated in specific parts of the brain. Consciousness depends on our neural circuits. You can't have a soul without blood, bones, and body. The seemingly immaterial feelings, thoughts, and ideas have physical correlations in the brain, though the immaterial immortality of the soul is still a widely held belief. But what is a soul? Well, I know more what a soul is not. A soul doesn't have weight. A soul is not eternal and not created supernaturally by a deity. A soul is not a stone, an unchanging thing. A soul is not just St. Francis in ecstasy. A soul seems to be a container of experiences. It allows us to reflect on the past. And at the same time, a soul has the ability to look behind a lens and see off into the distance a clarity. And the soul allows us to be present. A soul. What does it need? For sure, it needs more than water, more than bread. Maybe all a soul needs is a wide open space. Wide spaces to breathe in, to think in, and sink deep in. A soul needs the journey of time to find itself and the ability to move outside itself from time to time. A soul needs things to bind with. A soul needs proteins and fats and starches to scramble up with, to fry together gently with. It needs to be fed the wholesome soul food of prayer, meditation, and songs of spirit. Souls need to explore the shape of color with art. A soul needs dance. It needs jumps to enjoy. Souls long for peace and evolve over time. A soul is not just one thing. A soul is built to be still, yet it moves and changes. The soul, I say, is sacred. I do not mean that a soul is necessarily bound for some eternal glory, but a soul is a product of our own hardware store, emerging over time from our hominid ancestors to adapt to our environment, what is around us. We developed souls. And souls need the occasional shouts of joy. Seminary, yes, can be helpful for the formation of a soul, but a soul needs the quiet, serene thoughts of a white field in February. Souls also need other souls. Soul doesn't need much, actually, so it is easy to pack light. Just a few things, like the aforementioned open wordless space. A soul thinks. I mean, really thinks, contemplates. The soul is the center of the inner life, the location of love, perhaps. A point, a projection, a soul is created over time, influenced by experience. But a soul needs other souls. A soul is bound up together with me and you. If someone doesn't like your soul, go and find another soul who does. Sometimes the soul needs the tears beating on the dark black wool of another's shoulder. Having a soul gives you the credentials to care for other souls. A soul needs to know that they are not alone. A soul needs you. A soul needs me. There is an illusion of separate souls. Our souls are drops in the larger glass of reality. There is a relatedness to souls. Common experience creates a common soul which yearns for a moral vision of truth. Unchangeable, eternal. Give me a break. A soul changes and has a chemical reality to it. Yet on many levels, I think the mystics and others were right and correct. The soul can perceive an unknown mystery that grounds all of us. The soul has the weight of neurons there in the lightness after death. Our impact on others is the true weight of soul. A soul is dependence, absolute dependence, and glimpses into calmness and stays there. A soul is never blocked for too long. A soul's water flows around the large container ship blocking the canal. Soul is free, like the wind, the air we breathe. The search for true happiness is the work of the soul. The soul is the center of our inner life, and the more attention we pay to it, the better off we are. Both the many and the one are in the soul. The soul feels that we are related, relational, changing, and in process. The soul is a point of projection out into infinity. A soul is the within, the center of thought, feeling, behavior, memory, and experience. So how is it with your soul? Now, the beauty of Unitarian Universalism is that we can creatively combine scientific and the spiritual. We can take in contemporary understanding, fuse it with ancient wisdom, and put it to the test of contemporary experience. You don't have to agree with me, and I know that we might have 100 different definitions of what a soul is, and a few more dozen that say the word should be retired. Sometimes, though, it is the questions that matter most. The spark of soul awakened in us naturally emerges and is actually more empowering than a timeless created soul. We have souls just because who we are. And every soul is worthy of love. We have an innate sense of relationship in the soul and project this onto other souls, gods, goddesses, and even the entire universe. The soul is the center of who we are, and though our identity seems constant, souls change. A soul that reaches out and goes inward is in a sacred balance. So it makes sense to stop on the journey, clean off last season's grime so we can see better, wash off that salt that makes us rust, be filled with the wisdom that comes from the wordless within. So pull off and pay attention to the wise old woman of your soul, which knows the journey to true happiness. Perhaps it is in knowing the knowing of our own soul and its relations to other souls that we transform ourselves and the world. Amen, and blessed be.